What if I told you that every person you've ever met, every stranger you've passed on the street is actually you? Imagine living every single life in existence, past, present, and future, as if they were your own. What would that mean for how you see the world? What would that mean for how you treat others? This idea is known as the egg theory, a profound philosophical thought experiment that challenges our understanding of self and reality. It asks us to view life from an entirely different perspective, one where we are not just individuals, but part of a collective consciousness, experiencing life through the eyes of every person who has ever existed. It's a radical shift in thinking, and one that invites us to reconsider our place in the universe. What if your life wasn't the only life you've lived? What if you've experienced countless lives, from the dawn of civilization to the far future? And what if, when you die, you are reborn, not as someone else, but as yourself, living a different life, in a different time, and in a different body? Explaining the egg theory. The egg theory, first introduced in a short story by Andy Weir, begins with a simple premise. You are not just you. You are everyone. Every human who has ever lived and who will ever live is you. This idea redefines the very nature of individuality. You are not a singular being. Instead, you are the entire human experience, living through countless lives across time, space, and circumstance. When you die, according to the egg theory, you don't go to heaven, hell, or oblivion. Instead, you meet an all-knowing being who explains to you the truth of your existence. You have been reborn countless times and will continue to be reborn until you've lived every possible human life. The infinite lives. Imagine for a moment what this means. Every life you've lived, you have lived through every possible experience. You have been a ruler in a grand empire, making decisions that shape the world. You have been a peasant, working the land in obscurity, unnoticed by history. You have been a child, filled with wonder and curiosity, and you have been an elder, filled with wisdom and memories. You've experienced love, heartbreak, triumph, and failure. You've been rich and poor, kind and cruel, happy and broken. Every possible outcome, every possible human experience you've lived. In one life, you were an ancient philosopher, debating the nature of existence in a distant land. In another, you were a humble artisan, crafting tools in a small village. In another, you were a soldier, marching into battle, believing in the cause you were fighting for. And in yet another life, you were the leader of a nation, responsible for the lives of millions, making decisions that would echo through history. But the egg theory doesn't just stop at the grand and powerful. You've also lived as the forgotten, the marginalized, the voiceless. You've been the orphan struggling to survive on the streets. You've been the victim of war, famine, and disease. You've been the prisoner, the outcast, the rebel. You've been every victim of oppression and every agent of it. Every conflict in human history, you fought on both sides. The process of reincarnation in the egg theory is different from how it's typically understood in many religions. It's not about being reborn as a different person, but as yourself in a different life. There is no linear timeline. You could live as someone in the distant future, exploring distant galaxies, and in the next life, be born into a primitive society thousands of years in the past. Time doesn't matter here. The lives you live don't follow a strict sequence. They happen simultaneously in the grand scope of the universe. Imagine that in one life, you're experiencing the modern age with all its complexities, technologies, and societal structures. In the next, you could be living in ancient times, struggling to survive in a world vastly different from the one you know. This fluidity of time and experience means that each life adds to the overall understanding of what it means to be human. This brings us to one of the most profound implications of the egg theory: empathy. If you are everyone, and everyone is you, how can you ever justify harm to another person? If every person you encounter is simply another version of yourself, living a different life, then every act of kindness or cruelty is an act towards yourself. In harming another, you are, in essence, harming yourself. In loving another, you are loving yourself. This challenges us to rethink our actions. If you knew that the person you wronged, insulted, or ignored was actually just another version of you, would you act differently? Would you be more compassionate, more patient, more understanding. The egg theory invites us to approach every interaction with the knowledge that we are not separate from others. We are intimately connected, all part of the same consciousness. Consider the people you pass by every day: the cashier at the grocery store, the driver who cuts you off in traffic, the person sitting alone on a bench. According to the egg theory, these people are you. Their experiences, their thoughts, their emotions, all of them are versions of your own consciousness, living different lives. The egg theory taps into many deep philosophical questions about existence, identity, and reality. It asks us to confront the illusion of the self, that our sense of individuality is just that, an illusion. What we perceive as me is only one fragment of a much larger whole. The boundaries we place between ourselves and others are artificial. In reality, we are all part of the same being, experiencing life from countless perspectives. This concept echoes ideas from various religious and spiritual traditions, such as Buddhism, which teaches that the self is an illusion and that we are all interconnected. It also touches on ideas from modern science, such as quantum mechanics, where the observer and the observed are not as separate as they seem. In both cases, the underlying message is that the separateness we experience is not the fundamental truth. But beyond the philosophical, the egg theory also asks practical questions. If we are all one consciousness, then what is the purpose of life? Is it to accumulate knowledge and experiences? Is it to reach some form of enlightenment or understanding? Or is it simply to live, to experience joy, pain, love, and sorrow in all its forms? In the end, the egg theory is more than just a thought experiment. It's a lens through which we can view our lives, our relationships, and our place in the universe. It challenges us to rethink how we treat others, how we approach conflict, and how we find meaning in our lives. It asks us to see ourselves not as isolated individuals, but as part of a grand, interconnected whole. So the next time you meet someone, whether friend or stranger, remember, they are you. And in living this life, you are also living theirs. If the egg theory holds any truth, then the journey of life is not about separation, but unity. It's not about winning or losing, success or failure, but about experiencing all that it means to be human.